Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In the last video, we set up a Prisma client to work with our Postgres database. In this video, we'll create a seed file to get some data into our database. So let's get started. So last we left off, we didn't have any data in the database as we saw. We don't have any tables as well, so we need to sort that out. So what I would do first of all is create in the package.json file. Oops. There we go. I'm going to create a script to essentially run db push command. So what's going to happen is when we run this command, it's going to push our changes, so the schema changes, up to our Prisma file, and we can have that running within our local instance. But before I do that, I'm going to install something called dotenv. I think I already have it installed, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I do. So you need to install dotenv. So you can do npm install g.dotenv-cli. And this is just so we can run the command. The idea is this m file, we need to access this m file when we run the Prisma command. And so this is how I'm going to set it up essentially. I'm not a fan of installing stuff globally, especially with npmg, but in this case, I need to use the dotenv-cli, so I'm just going to install it globally. So I'm going to set up the dotenv, and in this case, I want to specify dotenv, and I'm going to pass in the command, which is Prisma db push. And like we did before, I'm going to specify where the actual Prisma file is. So this, and I'm saying Prisma schema.prisma. There we go. So this is going to push up the changes to our database. So let's test if that actually works. Confirm the database is still running. Yes, it is. So I'm going to run pnpm db push. Let's see if it works. Localhost 5432. So I see. Essentially, this is not what we want. We want localhost. So I'm going to, I could create local database URL, and that should be fine. I think the difference here was localhost. I think that should be fine. So let's try that again. And well, that's not going to work either because we need to actually specify database URL. Okay. How do I resolve this? Well, for the sake of this tutorial, I'll just create a .env.local. And in there, I'm going to copy this, come back here, and I'm going to change that to localhost. Easy. There's probably a more elegant solution, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'll keep it simple. So .env.local and run pnpm push again, and that should connect and send our changes. No, it did not. Localhost 5432 could not reach it. Why is that? Okay, so I don't know what happened, but my Docker absolutely crashed. I needed to reset it and start from scratch. But essentially, what we have now, I made some changes here. I've changed this file name to env.database. I know I was noticing a weird bug. I'll fix that offline. But essentially, at this point, we have .env.database, and then we're doing a Prisma db push, and we're specifying the schema, which is in the general API. So all good. And we have this m.database. That's the one that's controlling this is how we're able to make the actual call. So if I do pnpm db push, we should generate the actual database. And if I come over here and I refresh, we should have the tables. There we go. We have a post and we have a user table. So that's all good. We have ID, email, name, which is what we had in the Prisma schema. So that looks good. Cool. So we have the ability to push. Now we need to be able to see the database. So I'm going to create a c.ts file. I'm creating that over here. And within the c.ts file, this is essentially where we're going to see the database. So we're just going to add some stuff to it. In this case, we have user and posts. So I'm just going to keep that open. So firstly, we want to import the Prisma client, which we already generated locally. So that's all good. I'm just going to add some spacing there. And then we want to essentially call the Prisma client, instantiate it, and I'm going to basically just create a function and immediately execute it. If I can type async, I can't type async. There we go. There we go. All right. And within this function, what I want to first do is wipe the database. So we're going to wipe it and get rid of any users that already exist. So we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And well, it's helping me complete, so which is awesome. I'm just going to carry on. So in this case, we're going to see the database with some data. So we're going to create a user with the email and the name. And then we're going to create a user with email and name, same as before. And we're going to create a post. And in this case, how are we joining that? So we're connecting by email. We should be connecting by the ID. So we're going to say const user Alice, and we're going to do const Bob. Oops. There we go. And then we're going to connect via ID. There we go. And so Alice now has one, and why not? Let's create one for Bob. There we go. And that should be good. I'm just going to reformat the code. All right. I believe that's all we need. Let's wrap this with a try catch, actually. Just in case something goes wrong, we want to be able to just error it out. Okay. Try catch. And we want a finally block as well, because we want to close the database regardless of what happens. But put that in there, and then we're going to catch, and then we're going to console error and process exit. And that should be all we need. Cool. So we have the seed file. It's going to delete the posts, delete the users, create new users, create new posts, and associate them. That's all looking good. Okay, cool. Next thing is to specify another command in here, which is already helpful. So essentially we want to run the seed command. And in this case, that all looks good, except we want to make a change here. So instead of this, I don't think I have this installed. I'm going to run this code because I'm using a TypeScript file. I want to run the code using tsnode, which is already installed. So what I should be able to do is tsnode, and then I want to specify some compiler options. I don't think I need this bit of the schema. I don't think that's required. So compiler options, and it's helpfully telling me that, which is awesome. There we go. So basically I want to specify that it's a common JS file that I would like to execute, and it is in apps, general API, Prisma, c.ts. So that should be, in theory, all I need. So let's try that. db seed. There we go. And let's try the execute. All right, awesome. That worked. And if I come back here, I refresh, hit user, and let's see if we have any data. Yes, we do. Awesome. And we should have the posts, which are associated by the author ID, which is excellent. So that's all good. And you could see pretty straightforward. I really love using the DB client within WebStorm. It just works and there's no problems. I'm going to move that over there because I don't like that there. So we have the database and we've created it and it's all good. So at this point, you can tweak the seed file if you want. The database is created and has the data inside. And really, you can take this as far as you want. Obviously, this is a template NestJS application. So you can create, update, delete users. And at this point, you can do whatever you want. And you can create the posts. If you're starting a project and there's particular models that you want or particular tables that you want in there, then you can create those tables and you can create the schema file and you can just save the template on your end and it's just ready to go. But at this point, we've got the actual database, got general API, able to connect to that database and create a user. I haven't tried that, so let's try that. 1 bit HTTP file. Yeah. Was it this one I ran? Yeah, it was this one I ran. All right, let's try that. And in theory, everything should just work. Yes, it did. Awesome. There we go. Obviously, name is null because I didn't. Why is it null? Oh, yeah, that's because I'm only passing in the email to create the user, which is fine. And if I refresh, come back to user, there we go. We have John at mail, and it's set to name is set to null. So the actual endpoint already works. Awesome. So obviously, at this point, we don't have authentication. We don't have validation around the data we're sending. We're not setting up any details or anything like that. This is just bare bones stuff. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to extend this to have create, read, update, and delete. And we're also going to write some tests for our database for the service calls that we have, just to make sure all of that's good and to make sure we have a consistent template across the board. And I also want to show how to actually write those tests. We do have a setup test already, but we haven't really got into how you would do an end-to-end test. I mean, we do have this, but it's not really testing the functionality that we've just added. So that we'll be doing that in the next video. We'll also be going over how to set up authentication, also how to set up multiple libraries. So at this point, we only have apps, but we're going to have a libs directory where we can set up libraries that we can reuse once we do the authentication. So a lot of fun stuff coming, but essentially at this point, you could, get started building your API and get the bare functionality that you need to be able to support the database instance, users, and any other models that you want to create. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments or things that you would like to see with this series, let me know. Otherwise, see you in the next one.